Good afternoon. Welcome to the March 25th policy meeting of the Phoenix City Council. I'll now call the meeting to order. Will the clerk call the roll?
Councilman Galindo Elvira.
Here.
Councilwoman Guardado.
Here.
Councilwoman Hodge Washington.
Here.
Councilwoman Pastor.
Here.
Councilman Robinson.
Here.
Councilwoman Stark.
Here.
Councilman Waring. Vice Mayor O'Brien.
Here.
Mayor Gallego.
Here. We'll begin with council information and follow-up requests, and we'll start with District 8, Councilwoman Hodge Washington.
Thank you, Mayor. There's been a few events since our last policy meeting that I wanted to share with everyone. Next slide. Oh, there we go. Last week, I celebrated Women's History Month with the councilman, Carlos Galindo Elvira, at the Latina Shaping the Future breakfast. It was an inspiring morning surrounded by powerful Latino leaders and trailblazers who are making a difference across our city. I also had the honor of attending the ceremonial street naming of Avenida Mujeres de Movimiento ceremony. It was a moving tribute to the women of the movement whose legacy continues to shape our future. Next slide.
Okay.
Okay. Next slide,
Is
please.
it frozen?
Oh.
Aha.
There we go. Next, I just want to invite everyone to join us for a few upcoming important events in District 8. First off, don't miss the District 8 Community Budget Hearing on April 7th at 6 p.m. at the South Mountain Community Library. We want to hear from you. Your voice matters in how we prioritize and invest in our community. Next, our coffee chat. Our next Coffee with Keisha will be in Levine on April 10th at 10 a.m. at the Cesar Chavez Community Center. These coffee chats are great opportunities to connect, ask questions, and share your thoughts. And lastly, on April 12th at 9 a.m., we are hosting the District 8 Health and Wealth Fair at the South Phoenix Youth Center. Come on out for free health screening, resources, and financial wellness tools for you and your family. Next slide. As always, if you need help with any city services or notice an issue in your community, don't hesitate to reach out to my office. That is all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll next go to Councilwoman Pastor.
Good afternoon. I'd like to thank Representative Cesar Aguilar for inviting me and being a co-sponsor with Unity Cruise to the Capitol. We had a great time showcasing our lowrider community and those at the Capitol, and also many voters that were there. Lots of fun. It was an honor to join Councilman Galindo Elvira and Councilwoman Hodge Washington and the mayor, and I'm missing somebody, in the Mujeres de Movimiento and highlight their efforts. These women worked alongside Cesar Chavez to fight for farm workers. The street naming is just one step towards recognizing them, and thank you for doing that. Budget hearings begin next week. Please participate and give a voice to the budget. Visit phoenix.gov/budget to view the full listings of the hearings. Next slide. I will be hosting a listening session on summer heat plans this Saturday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the Memorial Hall. Hoping to see everybody. The community wants to know what we are doing this summer for heat. And please register. On Monday, we are hosting a cleanup on our west side for Cesar Chavez Day. We will meet at Morris K. Udall Middle School for light refreshments before beginning the cleanup of the alleys in the area. Scan the QR code to sign up. I do want to bring attention, since it is policy, I do want to bring attention to an incident that happened this weekend that and it could be part of heat, but with our unsheltered population, residents. I received a text along with those in Office of Homeless Solutions about a resident, and forward that text to the staff and I didn't hear anything back from the staff. I still don't have an update on that other than we are trying. Stacy Champion, who was the advocate all weekend and was the advocate who helped Anna get situated. I'm grateful for her doing that because at least Anna had an advocate, or else she would have been placed out on the streets where she really needed some medical attention. Stacy also brought up another incident regarding another resident. And so my expectation is that staff respond to me. My expectation is that then I understand and get advice or tools so that I can communicate to my constituent, or our constituents, not mine, in order to be able to assist or enhance some services. So that is my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. D5 has been celebrating exciting milestones and creating fun events for our community, and I am delighted to share that we won't be stopping anytime soon. This past Saturday, March 22nd, my office, in partnership with NSD, celebrated the 1000th gated alley. I want to thank all the neighbors who joined us to celebrate the incredible milestone for our city and our community. I also want to thank NSC Director Spencer Self and Deputy Director Yvette Roeder for helping make the event possible, as well as the department and program managers who have made this program such a huge success in our community. Coming up this weekend, we have the grand opening of the Grand Canalscape this Saturday, March 29th from 10 a.m. to noon, located along the canal at 63rd Avenue and Clarendon Avenue. There will be free parking at Maryville High School. Come celebrate the unveiling of Phase 3 of the Grand Canalscape, adding 4 miles of beautiful outdoor amenities for everyone to come out and enjoy. This event is perfect for families and outdoor enthusiasts and is free and open to all. Also on Saturday, March 29th, from 12 to 4 p.m., we will be hosting our next Maryville Mercado celebrating Women's History Month. Come and enjoy a vibrant gathering of local vendors, delicious food, and lively entertainment at our Maryville Mercado at the Maryville Community Center. We will have free health screenings for women and D5 Micro Museum on honoring iconic women in history. This community event is the perfect place to explore unique crafts, savor local flavors, and soak in the festive atmosphere with family, friends, and neighbors. Join us this Saturday for a fun-filled day in Maryville. This past week, our office was delighted to participate in the Via de Paz Gain event in Maryville Prep Fiesta, where we also had the opportunity to begin sharing the Youth Interaction Survey regarding the development of youth interaction policy for the police department. Very delighted to say, between the two events, we were able to collect over 80 surveys. Team is looking at me like we did more than that. So just want to thank the team for all of their hard work and all of the youth that has participated in this survey. And I also want to invite you all to please share it with all of our youth, and hoping to be able to have huge success with the survey. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much, Councilwoman. Councilman Galindo Elvira.
Thank you, Mayor. 2 weeks ago, I joined the mayor and over 100 incredible volunteers to clean up the Tres Rios wetlands, and together we cleared out 6 tons of trash. Huge thanks to the Rio Reimagine team, ASU, and ADEQ for bringing us all together to protect this beautiful and important ecosystem. Next slide. I had a fantastic time at the St. Patrick's Day Parade. A big thank you to the Arizona East Valley Mustang Club for the great ride. It was really cool. And I also want to offer my congratulations to the Vice Mayor, Ann O'Brien, who was this year's Grand Marshal. Next slide. Last Monday, Councilwoman Hodge Washington and I hosted another successful Levine Quarterly meeting. Thank you to all the residents who attended and engaged with us. Next slide. Last week, I had the great honor of hosting the inaugural Latinas Shaping the Future breakfast in celebration of Women's History Month. A special thank you to our incredible panelists, Reina Montoya, Maria Lopez, Elisa Bustamante, and Angelina Bravo. Our amazing MC, Nicole Gutierrez from ABC 15, and of course, the wonderful Elvia Diaz for moderating. Most importantly, thank you to all the incredible women who joined us to celebrate, connect, and inspire one another. I also am appreciative for the attendance of my special guest to the event, Councilwoman-elect Ana Hernandez. Next slide. On Saturday, the city proudly unveiled the Avenida de Mujeres del Movimiento street sign, honoring the courageous women who played a vital role in Arizona's farm worker movement. I said it there, and I'm gonna say it here. Without women, there is no movement. Next slide. Last night, I continued my cooking tour of District 7 fire stations with a visit to Fire Station 3. I'm excited to be nearing the finish line with only 3 more stations to go, Fire Stations 1, 44, and 62. Next slide. To stay connected to what's happening around the city and to get more involved, check out phoenix.gov. As always, if you live in District 7 and want to contact me, it's easy. You can reach out through any of the options on the screen. I'm here to serve you and greatly value your input. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any additional council member comments? Great. I have one brief one. My team was able to join today with cleaning professionals to recognize National Cleaning Week. It is international celebration that recognizes cleaning professionals who do everything from making sure semiconductors can be safely made without any compromises in quality to the individuals who keep City Hall and council chambers clean. So we just want to thank you all for the important work that you do. And then with that, we will go into the main event. Today we'll have 1 hearing and 2 votes. We are going to discuss our summer heat plan. We plan year-round for heat in the city of Phoenix on the coldest day of the year. We still think about preparing for heat. This meeting comes as we set another record yesterday, a heat record that had been in place since 1990 fell, and that is something we say pretty regularly here. This is a challenge that continues. We are going to have 100 degrees earlier than one would have hoped. Our extreme heat is an evolving public health emergency that requires every level of government to step up to save lives. Here in Phoenix, we are working to do our part. I'm proud of our cross-departmental Phoenix team that includes Office of Emergency Management, Fire Department, Office of Homeless Solutions, Office of Heat Response and Mitigation, libraries, and more who do work to improve our heat relief efforts year over year. Last summer, we targeted areas with the highest heat-related emergency calls to place our extended hour cooling centers and our first ever 24-hour cooling center. We saw a reduction in heat-related calls last summer as a result. 2024 was the hottest summer on record in our community. According to Maricopa County, despite the heat record, the number of people who lost their lives from a heat-related illness went down for the first time in a decade. The number of people who lost their lives is still way too high, but the curve didn't happen by accident. It shows that providing a coordinated, thorough response to extreme heat can save lives. Today, we'll discuss on how to build upon last year's efforts, including the continuation of extended library hours and a new proposed site for our 24-hour cooling center. I want to thank MAG, Maricopa County, and our partners community-wide who support cooling centers and connect residents with life-saving resources. Lastly, I want to thank my colleagues on the City Council for your leadership and commitment to this issue. I'm proud that our investments are delivering results and saving lives. Thank you to our City Manager, Jeff Barton, the Phoenix leadership team, our first responders, and all of the hardworking staff and contractors for your work to keep our residents safe and comfortable in our summer heat. With that, I'll turn it over to our Deputy City Manager, Gina Montes.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. We're pleased to be before you this afternoon to talk about our 2025 heat response plan. And Mayor, as you so eloquently put it, we are evolving this plan. We worked all last summer and continued even into the winter to plan for this coming summer. And planning for the summer heat is truly a life-saving mission. With your direction and support, Mayor and Council, in 2024, city staff executed a plan to enhance our services and reduce heat-related illnesses and suffering, and of course, save lives. The work involved many partners, internal and external, and this year the team is proposing a plan that we hope will continue to improve and based on what we learned from last year. Today presenting will be Dr. Nick Staub, who's the Chief Medical Officer for the Maricopa County Public Health Department, Executive Assistant Chief Tim Kreis with the Phoenix Fire Department, and Dr. David Hondula, who's Director of the Office of Heat Response and Mitigation. And I also want to introduce with us core members of what we're calling our Heat Ready Unified Command Team, and they're with us as well to answer any questions after we complete the presentation. Rachel Milne, Director of the Office of Home Solutions, Erin McFarland, Director of the Phoenix Public Library, Michelle Litwin, Heat Response Program Manager, and Commander Brian Lee, Director of the Office of Emergency Management. And I'd like to acknowledge Amy St. Peter with the Maricopa Association of Governments. As you know, MAG is a very important partner in the regional heat relief. Today we'll be reviewing a summary of the Maricopa County Heat Surveillance Report, an overview of the 2024 heat response efforts, proposed 2025 heat response plan with a focus on the heat relief efforts specifically. And then we will request that the Mayor and Council take action on the plan itself and related items necessary to execute the plan. Mayor, you alluded to the number of partnerships that it takes. And in addition to Maricopa County and MAG who are with us today, there are many community partners who worked with us last summer and who will again support the effort in 2025. As you can see, there's a tremendous support from all of our partner organizations. Within our organization, there are more than 20 departments that supported the heat relief effort in 2024. It will once again require the full support of the City of Phoenix to support the 2025 plans. And now I'll turn the presentation over to Dr. Staub to discuss the heat surveillance report.
Thank you, Gina. Good afternoon, Mayor Gallego, council members. As was referenced, I'm going to start by just looking back at last summer. It was a record summer in many ways, and I think it sets a stage for understanding what our health data is and how successful we were, what work we still have to do moving forward. So here on your screen, in red is last summer's high temperatures over a gray line that shows your 30-year average. And I think what's remarkable is how many days over the summer had days significantly higher than that 30-year average. Also notably, our temperatures into October and that long heat wave that we experienced really till the end of October. The records that were set importantly include 113 consecutive days at or above 100 degrees. We had 70 total days at or above 110. And for the first time, we reached 110 degrees in the month of October. So really an unprecedented summer. As was mentioned, in Maricopa County, in the last 10 years, as we've been tracking our heat-related deaths, we have seen that number climb year over year with a record increase in 2023, a 52% increase over 2022. And that represents 800% increase in that last decade. I think it's also important to note here that in that time, there has been no significant change to the way that we are investigating or defining a heat-related death. So we are very excited a few weeks ago to announce our preliminary heat data, along with great work that was done here in the city of Phoenix. We saw the first decline in the last decade in that total number. So 602 with 8 deaths still under investigation. We will have our final report out later in April. But this is definitely a point in time where we really wanted to reflect on what we did last summer, as this was a significant change in the trends that we had seen. So digging into that data a little further, While the overall number fell, the data shows that we have consistently high-risk population that need our support to survive during the summer. The majority of those heat-related deaths were men of middle age and occurred in urban areas. So here you can see that about 80% of the heat-related deaths were male. Most of the deaths, more than 50%, occurred in individuals aged 35 to 64. So certainly more of a middle age, while there is a trend towards older individuals being at high risk. And nearly 60% of our heat-related deaths occurred in non-Hispanic white persons. However, African Americans and American Indians are disproportionately impacted. Here you can see that 15% and 6% of African Americans and American Indians were amongst the heat-related deaths, compared to 5.5% and just over 1% in our population. So similar to recent years, about 3/4 of our deaths occurred outdoors, and with a preponderance of those outdoor deaths occurring in urban areas. So that's really, I think, when we're focusing on where we can have meaningful interventions, those are the spaces that we are most concerned with. We do investigate the living situation of individuals, and has been typical in recent years. About 50% or half of heat-related deaths occurred in individuals experiencing homelessness. We also are particularly interested in the number of these cases that involve substance use. More than half of the heat-related deaths in 2024 involved substance use, and quite notably, almost 90% of those deaths involving substance use involve stimulants. So you can compare that to 44% that involved opioids. So really trying to highlight going into the summer and working with partners the significance of stimulant use.
Do you mind taking a quick question? Councilwoman Pastor.
Sure.
How do you collect this information?
So all of this information is collected through investigations through the Office of the Medical Examiner. We look both at cause of death on death records, as well as cases that are taken up by the OME may have toxicology data, so looking specifically at what substances are detected.
Okay, so you go back and look for that information or data, or you?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and with that, I will end my portion and pass it off to Chief Kreis.
Thank you, Dr. Staub. Mayor Gallego, members of the council, as a city, we've come together working hard to build collaborative heat response programs with the intent of saving lives. I've been with the city of Phoenix for over 20 years, and these heat response programs have been the most collaborative I've seen, involving many city departments and other partners. Our heat response plan includes actions and efforts of many: first responders, the provision of cool and accessible public spaces, drinking water, cool and safe homes, recreation, heat safety for workers, community engagement and outreach, and significant collaboration. From the fire department's perspective, our heat response programs have saved lives. Last year, I shared the firefighter experience in extreme temperatures. During the summer months, firefighters in Phoenix and across the valley prepare and work some very long and difficult shifts. Our heat response plan included both short and long-term strategies, and we have said that people cannot die from extreme heat exposure sitting in an air-conditioned building with a cold bottle of water in their hands. Accessible cooling centers opened when needed, where needed, save lives. Additionally, our heat response strategy included long-term options, connecting services offered by the City of Phoenix and other partners to those in need. And when compared to last year, 911 patients with heat-related medical emergencies were reduced by 20%, exceeding my expectations, especially considering we had the longest and hottest summer on record. The location of heat relief sites is important, and this map, while a little bit difficult to see, I'll describe it, shows the locations of the 3 extended hour library locations from last year: Cholla, Yucca, and Harmon. Also, the map shows Burton Bar, the 24-hour site, and Senior Opportunities West, which was opened overnight. And heat patients within a mile of these sites in 2023 totaled 248, and that number was reduced to 185 in 2024, and that's just a little bit over a 25% reduction immediately around those site locations. The adaptive heat response programs built and implemented through the leadership of Mayor and Council were significant, and the challenges presented to us inspired more innovations like the fire department's new treatment options for patients having extreme heat-related emergencies. The cold water immersion program was truly a boots on the ground initiative, and it was developed by our EMS training captains in coordination with our medical director and downtown fire companies that were inundated with hyperthermia calls in 2023. This program is for patients with extreme heat-related illness who are unresponsive and with temperatures above 104.5 degrees Fahrenheit. Using cold water immersion therapy, our goal is to get our patient's temperature down to 101 degrees and get those critical patients transported over to the emergency room. 311 patients throughout the whole summer, May through October, benefited from this treatment. The busiest months were June with 66, July with 151, and then August with 70. Cold water immersion therapy and rapid transport to the hospital saved lives. We've had people who would have died prior to this new treatment that left the hospital with no deficits. This is the best way to manage critical heat patients, and our goal for this program is for it to spread across the United States and around the world to share the new life-saving stuff that we've developed here. The Phoenix Fire Department has been contacted by fire departments around the country about our cold water immersion treatment program, including LA County, Miami-Dade, San Antonio, and others. And while this treatment program has saved lives, I know that our comprehensive heat response program, which reduced heat-related emergencies again by 20%, prevented countless patients from needing this treatment. And with that, I'll turn the presentation over to Dr. Handula.
Thank you, Chief, and good afternoon, Mayor and Council. As the Chief alluded to, last year marked significant growth for our heat response program. Complementing the field techniques that the Chief just spoke to, with your support, the city made major investments in some of our heat relief network sites last year, and we operate these sites to keep people from needing to call 911 for a heat emergency in the first place. First, we created 24/7 and overnight respite options at 2 city facilities. These facilities were selected after a rigorous analytical process that considered health data, accessibility, and facility infrastructure and capacity. We opened these resources as part of our effort to address a regional need for more after-hours and overnight capacity. Nearly every heat relief site in our region closes at the end of business hours, yet we all know how dangerous the heat can be into the evening hours and overnight, and the health data support the need for that overnight capacity. We operated a 24/7 heat respite and navigation center in the former and vacant cafe space at Burton Bar Library, and we provided overnight relief at the Senior Opportunities West Senior Center. Between these 2 sites, we saw more than 28,000 visits from more than 5,000 unique visitors. And at these sites, we had a comprehensive staffing model to try to help visitors solve the challenges that brought them to the heat relief site in the first place. We also had a robust security model to ensure that visitors and the surrounding areas were as safe as possible. With respect to extended hour cooling centers, last year the city made dedicated space for heat relief available in 3 of our library branch locations after typical operating hours ended. These locations were chosen based on the same analysis that informed the 24/7 and overnight options. A cooling center space was open at all sites until 10 p.m., and that included added hours on Sundays. And as with our 24/7 and overnight sites, this was a multi-pronged staffing and security effort with our library staff, Community Bridges, Inc., and security. These sites also logged thousands of visits, and some of these sites had visitors experiencing a very wide range of circumstances. We saw visitors who were seeking heat relief after youth soccer practice to residents who were coming there because they were without power for one reason or another. These sites were resources for the entire community. And while the primary mission of our heat relief sites is to provide residents a safe, air-conditioned space to cool off and get hydrated, we recognize that these sites offered a great opportunity to help people get connected to additional services. Trying to make those connections is why we implemented a robust staffing model with teammates from the Office of Homeless Solutions and our partners at Community Bridges, Inc. And that staffing model made a huge difference in the lives of hundreds, if not more, of our community members. From our heat relief sites last year, we're proud to report that more than 900 people were placed into programs including housing, shelter, and family reunification. That includes many families and minors. Because of engagement at a heat relief site, as we sit here today, there are more than 300 people in housing who otherwise might not have been. Our robust staff and services model at heat relief sites also included health and medical care provided by Teros Health and ASU Nursing. You can see some of the metrics on the slide in terms of the numbers of hours contributed and supplies distributed. These partners addressed a very wide range of health and medical needs, and among them, we provided special attention to heat and substance use concerns, as Dr. Staub alluded to. Substance use is a factor in over half of our heat-related deaths, which is why we were motivated to engage these partners, developing specialized informational resources on heat and substance use, and ensuring that heat relief sites are part of the city's naloxone distribution program. I'd like to briefly highlight a few other programs that were part of our plan last year, just to illustrate its breadth. The city, once again, last year was the backbone for regional water distribution for heat relief. In addition to the 62 heat relief sites that the city operates, we provided water to another 60 community partner organizations, distributing approximately 1.2 million bottles in total throughout the summer. Your commitment of American Rescue Plan Act funds enabled us to also offer direct financial assistance to organizations that support heat relief efforts. Last year, we were able to award more than $300,000 to 18 organizations, and their reach impacted more than 36,000 residents, providing them resources such as heat safety supplies and access to extended and weekend cooling center hours. City departments, including the Heat Office, provided support for some of the major events that Phoenix was privileged to host last summer, including the WNBA All-Star Game. At these events, we offered pop-up hydration stations and cool zones, as well as heat safety education to ensure that residents and visitors had a positive experience and to avoid further strain on our fire department resources responding to heat illness calls. Partners in these efforts included the Convention Center and Downtown Phoenix, Inc. And finally, our citywide communications campaign had expanded modes and reach last year. There was information on traditional billboards and digital signage. We distributed thousands of the pamphlets that you can see on the slide, as well as a companion version that was focused on heat and substance use. And of course, we fielded many interview requests to spread the word through our media partners. As you've heard from my colleagues, we know that the full suite of these heat response programs reached and benefited many community members last year. You've heard the statistics, but just to put them all in one place, a 20% decrease citywide in heat-related 911 calls, including more than a 25% reduction in the immediate vicinity of those 5 enhanced heat relief sites. We saw the first decline in heat-related deaths in more than a decade. But beyond those metrics are the hundreds, or I would estimate even thousands of lives that were changed for the better as a result of engagement with the heat response program, including the 900 placements we talked about before. I think it's also important to remember the thousands of visits that simply resulted in a few hours of peace, comfort, cool space, and quiet. I would like to acknowledge that we are a long way from achieving the collective community vision that heat-related illnesses are minimized and heat-related deaths are eliminated. Public health professionals widely agree that heat-related deaths are preventable. We are seeing positive indications that show that your support has enabled us to gain meaningful traction on a very big regional problem, but a problem that we still have a lot of work to do to fully solve. One of the important components of our team's work to coordinate heat response programs last year was our improved data collection efforts that informed our after-action report at the end of the season and guided our planning for this year. This is a data-driven approach. A few of the key insights that we learned or had confirmation of last year is that this comprehensive staffing model was so essential. We learned, iterated, and evolved through the summer in terms of what the staffing and security presence looked like. And we have iterated to a model that we are confident to deploy at the start of the 2025 heat season. While we did see reductions citywide in heat-related 911 calls and reductions near the heat relief sites, our general hotspots for heat-related 911 calls are consistent with previous years. Those include the downtown core and the I-17 corridor extending north to approximately Peoria. And finally, we had confirmation that sites that are accessible to all modes of travel, but especially pedestrians, is very important. A very, very high percentage of visitors to our sites got there by foot, and the next most common modes were bicycle or public transit. So guided by those insights and many more, we've revised the heat response plan for 2025. In your packet, we've highlighted several actions that are significantly revised or added for this year. But in our presentation today, we'd like to focus the dialogue on key revisions in the strategy area of providing publicly accessible cool space. We will share with you proposed changes to the 24/7 Heat Respite Center and the operational model for extended hour cooling centers. The operational season planned for heat efforts this year, like last year, is May through September. Although in light of that unprecedented heat we saw last October, we did demonstrate agility to extend operations by a few weeks. I'll remind you, Mayor and Council, that we are trying to solve this regional challenge and that there's very little publicly accessible cool space available after typical business hours. In fact, about 1/3 of heat-related 911 calls occur outside of typical business hours, and I think it's a safe bet that some of the calls that do occur during the typical business day are because people are not able to find adequate cooling overnight. So for 24/7, this year, we once again conducted a rigorous search for facilities that could be part of the heat relief mission, keeping in mind our key selection criteria as we did before, including 911 calls, accessibility, and having the necessary capacity, infrastructure, and life safety systems. And we are glad to report that we have identified a property at 20 West Jackson Street that is available for short-term lease for this mission. We've conducted assessments with our fire colleagues, planning, our ADA team, Public Works, and IT, and we're confident that the property can meet needs for the operational season. We've also understood the modest scope of work that we'd like to complete before we go operational on May 1st. Importantly, this location has the capacity to accommodate the combined population that used the Burton Bar Respite Center and the Senior Opportunities West overnight facility last year. So we're proposing to consolidate the 24/7 and overnight efforts into one facility. Burton Bar and Senior Opportunities West in the proposed model would no longer host enhanced strategies, but would continue serving as heat relief sites more generally as consistent with dozens of other city facilities. This would mean that Burton Bar is a cooling center, as it has been for many years during typical business hours, and Senior Opportunities West Senior Center participates as a hydration station, also during normal business hours. And with respect to extended hour cooling centers, we're proposing to make a change that we hope is received as good news for all residents, and it's a change that will also help with our staffing and operational planning. Unlike last year, when we only had a limited space available for heat relief without access to full library services, this year we're proposing to keep these 3 library locations fully open with services and programs until 10 p.m. We've identified a better staffing model that will improve efficiency and reduce burdens on existing staff, and we will also support these locations with Community Bridges Inc. and security resources during those extended hour periods. We're excited about deploying this model at 3 locations because not only does it continue to provide essential heat relief for the community, but expands the indoor air-conditioned resources available for residents and families who are looking for things to do in cool space during our long, hot summer. And with respect to some of the complementary integrated activities at these sites, we plan to continue integrating health and medical services at the 24/7 and extended hour locations, including those partnerships with Teros and ASU Nursing. We'll also be continuing to work with local researchers and organizations with expertise in substance use and overdose prevention to ensure that our messaging and engagement is as effective as possible in addressing one of the major contributing factors to heat-related deaths. And I'd now like to hand the presentation back to Deputy City Manager Montes to review the management and budget components of the plan and to share a few final thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Handula. Mayor and Council, once again, we'll continue the model with our Heat Ready Unified Command Team, addressing the operations and managing any concerns that arise as quickly as possible. This is helpful because the key departments are engaged on a daily basis and make it very efficient. And the team will once again provide a weekly heat response report provided directly to you, Mayor and Council, which will also be available on phoenix.gov/heat. And this report includes heat-related calls for service, visits by location, referrals for services, and other information, key information from the summer program. The cost for this summer is approximately $4.9 million, which will be funded by City American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, opioid settlement funds, and funding from the Maricopa County Department of Public Health. We'd like to close with a video of a family that we met last summer during our heat response activities.
Hi, I'm Caroline, and I'm with the Office of Homeless Solutions. This summer, I worked at our Burton Bar Heat Relief Center. Over the summer, our teams were able to connect 900 individuals, including families and small children, into placement services such as shelter and housing. This is one of the families that we'd like you to meet.
Basically have a bunch of trials and tribulations that led us to homelessness.
Devon, Keith, and their 2-year-old daughter, Zaylee, found themselves living on the street during Phoenix's dangerous summer heat.
It was hard.
It was.
That struggle, but it was hard. Yeah. You know, just to go to sleep and it's still hot. Yeah. I was like that. So she's crying, she's fighting, she's hot, she's just confused.
The family heard about the 24-hour heat relief offered at Burton Bar Central Library and went there looking for help.
Yeah. We wouldn't be right here.
Right.
If we never made
but it was still
that good steps out the streets, then somebody wasn't there.
There, they met Caroline, who helped connect them with a room at UMOM's family shelter.
Caroline was nice. They was so amazing.
Yes.
They comforted us. They made sure we was hydrated. Snacks. Yeah. They feed my daughter. Very healthy. Yes.
Now, they're looking forward to their future as a family.
Now we're at UMOM. It's like we get this head start to get our own place and finally to be together.
Use that first step.
Yeah.
That's all we needed was that first step.
And have a message for anyone else in need of help.
Not to say keep faith, keep striving, get the resources that are out here. Is willing to help. I'm bear witness to it.
We really appreciate the family's willingness to share their story. And Mayor and members of the council, we respectfully request your approval. Let me advance the slide. Too moved by the video. We respectfully request your approval of the 2025 Heat Response Plan and authorization to lease the 20 West Jackson property, to contract with CBI to operate and provide supportive services, to authorize the IGA with Maricopa County, and to authorize the agreement with CBI for security services. And with that, we're available to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. We'll go first to Councilman Galindo Alvira, and we'll begin with item 1, which is the approval of the heat response plan.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of questions. First of all, thank you all for your presentation. I very much appreciate the work that you've put into it. It's thoughtful, it's caring, and for many of our viewers who are watching, I want you to know that this is not seasonal planning, this is annual planning in ensuring the safety of our residents during the hottest time of the year. So, Dr. Staub, I got 2 questions for you. The first one is, why is it stimulants play such a big role in substance abuse-related deaths?
Thank you, Mayor and Councilman Galindo Elvira. So it's a physiologic response. So stimulant-based substances cause a response in the body that elevates the heat and makes your ability to respond to the environmental heat more difficult. So it just compounds the heat. Obviously, we see similar responses with other drug types that may make a person confused and unable to follow through with a plan to stay cool. But it's the compounded effects of stimulants and heat that make them especially dangerous.
Thank you. And then my second question to you is, what role does comorbidity play in heat-related deaths?
Yeah, so in our final report that will come out in April, we will have more details on those comorbidities. It's important. I think it's why we see more heat-related deaths amongst older individuals, oftentimes with other comorbid medical conditions, as well as mental health conditions that we also know put individuals at higher risk for heat-related death. So it is an important consideration, definitely something we work with our healthcare systems and healthcare providers to make sure that when they're talking to their patients who have those conditions, that they're talking about planning for heat as well, how to keep themselves cool, hydrated, and specifically with certain medications act differently when a person is in the heat. So taking that all those considerations into account when we at Public Health are planning for our heat season.
Thank you. Dr. Hondula, on page 5 of the draft, it talks about the 31 specific heat response actions, and number 3 is increase access to drinking water. How do you plan on doing that? Can you share that information with us?
Thank you for the question, Mayor and Councilmember Galindo Elvira. There are a number of specific actions in the plan that speak to our efforts to improve access to drinking water. Amongst them is distributing bottled water through our heat relief sites and to community partners. And we're very happy to be working on a new distribution model to support the entire community in partnership with the Maricopa County Department of Public Health. We are in lockstep in developing a new logistical model that will be even better for the whole community. We're also proud to elevate the work of our partners in the Office of Innovation, increasing access to drinking water through the chilled water fountain pilot program.
And my second and final question for you is on number 6 says implement heat safety measures for workers. How is that going to happen, and are there partners, is there a partnership with others for this initiative?
Thank you for the question, Councilman, Mayor, and council members. The city's action with respect to worker safety occurs on a number of fronts, but I think it's also important to set the context that the state really holds primary jurisdiction over worker safety in Arizona, and we, with the council, have been exploring opportunities to improve worker safety engagement. Certainly the excellent work of our Human Resources Department in developing and implementing heat safety plans for every city department. Last year, the council also passed a new ordinance that creates heat safety expectations for contracted workers, and there continues to be an ongoing dialogue with staff and a city manager's advisory board that was commissioned to ensure that that ordinance is implemented as effectively as possible.
Thank you, and thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much. We'll go to Councilman Robinson and then Councilwoman Pastor, then Councilwoman Hodge Washington.
Thank you, Mayor. The first question, first of all, I want to comment along with my colleague. You guys, it's an exceptional presentation, a lot of hard work that's been going on for some time, and I thank you for that, and very appreciative of all your hard work. The first question, I'll go to Gina Montes, and it's about, I know the answer to the question, but I'm going to ask it anyway, because I think it needs to be asked in a public forum. Is there anyone else, any other municipalities in the greater Maricopa County area, is anyone else doing the amount of work or the type of work that we are doing in comparison to the size of their localities?
Mayor, Councilman Robinson, the other cities, what in my observation, they have generally done opened their existing city facilities during business hours. Our hope is that this summer that there will be an improvement, and I know there was a call through the mayor in her role with the Maricopa Association of Governments to get other cities to expand what they're offering. But I can confidently say that there isn't another city even kind of scaling down for what the scope of their community has that's anywhere close to the effort and that we are putting in to heat response here with the city of Phoenix in partnership with the county.
Okay, and that's what I thought, and thank you for that. A question for Dr. Straub. It was actually on slide page number 12. It's the heat-related deaths, and I know this is a Maricopa County. These are numbers from Maricopa County. But when we talk about the urban area, is there any way, or do you have the information to break it down into how many of those are actually in the city of Phoenix? And if not, that's okay. I don't want anyone to have to do any work that's not already there.
Yeah, thank you, Councilman Robinson and Mayor. So when we have our final heat report available, we will be able to fill data requests from cities who are looking for those specific numbers, whether it's just total heat-related deaths in the city or how they break down in these different spaces and go into much greater detail. This was just from our preliminary report, which keeps it kind of high level, but we are prepared to share that with cities and other partners.
Okay, that would be great to know when it is available. Thank you for that. And along those same lines, when we look at the heat deaths that are inside the residence and things like that, I would also be curious to know, again, not just Phoenix, but if there's a way to see where those are happening, because clearly it's an economics thing sometimes. I think we recognize that, but us knowing that would allow each and every one of us up here to sometimes apply a little bit of, I say pressure for lack of a better word, to some of the utility companies or other organizations that can be helping in these areas if we're aware of it. It's too hot now as far as I'm concerned, but it's going to get hotter, we know it, and if there's a way that we can continue to help you guys doing the job that you're doing, I would, and I think I'm speaking for my colleagues up here, if you let us know, I know everyone is more than willing to help. But again, thank you for the presentation. It's exceptional. Really appreciate the information, and I know you're doing good work. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman Hodge Washington and then Councilwoman Pastor.
Thank you, Mayor. I echo the sentiments that were stated earlier. Thank you to the Fire Department, our Office of Emergency Management, Heat Response and Mitigation, Homeless Solutions, Public Health, Maricopa County for the incredible work and service and coordination that you provide to our community. There are too many partners to list, as we saw on this screen, but we realize that collaboration is really, the collaborative approach is what really makes the difference. Although we saw records being broken and it comes to the heat, we also, for the first time, saw a first decline in heat-related deaths. So that means that what we're doing is making progress. So the updated heat response plan, I think, is about being proactive. It makes sure we are planning ahead and allocating the necessary funding and resources necessary to save lives. It's not about, they're just not numbers. These are actually lives that we are talking about. Reduce our emergency calls so our firefighters can deal with the true emergencies in our community. And we are protecting our most vulnerable from extreme heat. So I want to start off by saying thank you for all of your efforts. We've seen a reduction in heat deaths as well as 911 calls, and I'm hopeful that we continue to build on that success. I have a couple of questions, probably need a little clarification. On slide 13, as Councilman, this is a kind of a piggyback because he's got the first part of my question, Councilman Robinson. We saw for those individuals that are not experiencing homelessness, we saw their numbers for 2023 and 2024. I don't want to use the word stagnant, but they really were not, they both were at 42%. I presume that our primary strategy to those individuals are a combination of two things. One, ensuring that the residence where they are located has adequate cooling, and two is communication. Is there something else that I am missing on when we're talking about those that are currently housed?
Thank you, Councilwoman Hodge Washington, Mayor, and council members. I think you did well in summarizing the types of programs that are available, in particular for summer heat response. Although if we zoom out, I think it's also important to remember that there's a much larger set of resources available that can help people with energy assistance, home weatherization. Some of those are programs run by the city or in partnership with the city, some run by utilities or in partnership with utilities that all play an important role. I think what our team needs to keep working on is helping ensure that residents are available of those and working with the other city departments that implement them where we can find opportunities for improvement.
Thank you for that. One of the questions that I have, and it's more of a data, I know the data is not available at this juncture. It talks about on page 9 of the draft report, it talks about among the indoor heat-related deaths, 62 occurred in a home and air conditioning units were present, but 88% of the time, but often not functioning. Do we have any data to determine whether or not these are rental properties or whether or not these are owner-occupied properties? I'm just trying to understand the scope of the need necessary to address that problem.
Thank you for that question, Councilwoman. I think in our investigations, we are not able to get that specific information. I think in response to your earlier question about what we're doing, focusing on those indoor deaths is really focusing on some of the messaging that we do to the community to make sure that you're checking on your neighbors, checking on your families, making sure that everyone in our community has a plan because we are all exposed to the extreme heat. Your power cutting off or your air conditioning going out suddenly can put you in a very difficult situation, especially if you have mobility issues or don't have other folks to help you at home. So that's really our focus. And then, as I had mentioned earlier too, speaking with our healthcare provider community, making sure that they're talking to their patients and about a plan for getting through the heat and what the resources may be. So we're kind of taking that multi-pronged approach.
Thank you for that. The other part of my question goes to, I'm making some presumptions here. I have no access to data. I'm just going off of anecdotal information I've received over time, is that many times the individuals that are in homes that don't have the air conditioning either on or functional are our elderly population. And those are individuals who sometimes makes those decisions without being aware of some of the resources that are available to them. Is there any specific component of the plan that you think we need to highlight or stress to ensure that that population is more advised of the resources that are available to them?
Thank you for the question, Councilman Hodge Washington, Mayor and council members. Yes, we agree. We hear the stories of decisions that are made, perhaps unaware of the available resources. We know that our elderly neighbors also have challenges in sensing how warm the environment is because of how the body ages over time. So we've certainly been in conversation with the Human Services Department about opportunities to engage at our senior centers and promote messages through channels like those. I think we have more work to do on that front. As you noted, there's a lot of progress still to be made with respect to our senior population. While I have the microphone open, Councilwoman, if I may, just in response to your previous question, I do think it's important for the listening public to be reminded that the city does have a cooling ordinance that creates requirements for reasonable cooling standards at rental properties. And if a tenant is in a building that is not being adequately air conditioned, our excellent teams in the Neighborhood Services Department and Human Services Department will get involved to help bring that property into compliance and ensure that our renters are cool.
And that was kind of where I was going to go with my original question, is identifying, do we have a problem where our landlords are not aware of this or we're not actively enforcing this? And I just wanted to make sure we had that flagged on our radar to make sure that those individuals we keep some track of that information going forward so that we can know whether or not the problem actually lies with the landlord or in the equipment, or do we have we have owner-occupied residents where they simply can't afford it and they don't meet the qualifications for the resources that we provide. I'm just trying to figure out what the disconnect is, because most of our attention focuses on the unsheltered population. And I want to ensure that we are not ignoring those individuals that are also equally vulnerable, that just because they happen to have a roof over their head at this juncture, that they are still vulnerable and susceptible to heat-related deaths. So that was the purpose of my original question. I do have an additional question jumping on. It was more to slide number 14. And the reason it's a question is the way I read this slide, it indicated that in 2024, 89% of the heat-related deaths had some type of substance use involved. Is that correct?
Thank you, Councilwoman Washington. I want to just to clarify, these bars are of those deaths that involve substances. So about 50% of the heat-related deaths involve substances. Of those that involve substances, 89% involved stimulants. So it's 89% of 50.
Okay, so thank you for the clarification. So you're saying more than 50% of the deaths involved substance, and of that 50% or whatever that number is, 89% of them involve some level of stimulant.
That is correct. And so I think if you're looking at our preliminary report, I think it follows a little more, a little easier. You see the bars in succession, but yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. One more, I'm coming, I'm almost there. I have a couple questions regarding the proposed 24-hour, 24/7 respite at 20 West Jackson. And maybe this is a better question for City Manager Montez. What do we anticipate to be the anticipated cost of operations for this center?
Councilman Hodge Washington, if I could have, I'm going to have Rachel Milne come up, and she's been delving into the details of the costs and can help us parse out the different areas.
Sorry, I was trying to be helpful, but apparently I
No,
wasn't.
appreciate it. I knew we'd bring her up here at least once today. So.
Mayor, members of the council, so the cost to rent the facility with rent and utilities included is roughly $40,000 per month. And then our costs on top of that for CBI, I didn't bring my glasses and my budget is really small. 1.7 million is the contract amount for CBI to operate that in a 24 hours a day with their security team inside, and then an additional 700,000 for our overtime PD that we are lining up for the exterior of the site to maintain security outside of the site and then our neighboring properties around 20 West Jackson.
Did I hear you correctly? You said rent and utilities are about $40,000 a month?
Correct.
Because I thought I read, yeah, the packet says the city is responsible for utilities and maintenance, so that's why I was confused.
Yes,
Yeah.
our mayor and members of council, our rental agreement is for the rent and utilities of the site, roughly $40,000 a month, and then we will be responsible if anything were to happen with the air conditioning or any ongoing maintenance, all the janitorial that will be on the city and CBI to maintain all of those.
Okay, well, that's good to know that the rent includes the utilities as well. Thank you for that. One of the questions that I had when we were discussing this in our briefings was the understanding the extent of the community outreach and the community. I know this isn't predominantly more of a commercial area, and I want to ensure that the businesses have been brought up to speed as to what to expect, and is there some nature of outreach and coordination with those neighbors? Thank you.
Yes, Mayor, Councilwoman Hodge Washington, at all of the locations, we've begun reaching out to neighborhood groups, property owners. As far as 20 West Jackson in particular, I'd like Rachel to kind of summarize some of those discussions. We've had kind of a roving team, so whoever can go among the team will send someone to talk with the neighbors and try to help them, address their concerns, answer questions, make sure that we are preparing ourselves well for this summer. So maybe if you want to address the 20 West Jackson.
Sure, Mayor and members of council. So specifically for 20 West Jackson, we've met with our closest neighbors who own several properties right around the 20 West Jackson site. We've also met with the chairman of the Warehouse District Council, and just recently we presented at the entire Warehouse District Council. We're also working through Downtown Phoenix, Inc., leveraging their partnerships to have additional meetings with additional partners that might want to learn a little bit about what we're doing and how we're securing the site.
So if I heard correctly, do we believe that the community outreach has been completed, or is it still ongoing?
Mayor, members of council, we have a couple of additional meetings that we anticipate getting within the next few weeks. Some directly through Downtown Phoenix, Inc., and then we're also working through Neighborhood Services Department to talk to the neighborhood leaders just south of the 20 West Jackson property as well.
Do you mind sharing the feedback that you have received thus far from the neighbors that you have spoken to?
Sure, mayors and members of council. We are primarily have focused on the businesses around us, and we have heard obviously some concern and some recommendations. Some of the things that we are letting them know that we're putting in place at the beginning are things we learned last year at 20 West Jackson, or excuse me, at the Burton Bar Library. So for example, we're starting off May 1st with our overtime PD outside of the center. Last year, we added that sort of midstream in our process. The other thing that I think is that we're putting in place beginning May 1st is a 24-hour hotline at 20 West Jackson. So if any of our neighbors have an issue, they have a number to call directly. And then we're also going to offer to meet with these neighbors on a frequent basis throughout the summer, so we can be addressing concerns as they come up as well.
Okay, thank you for that. What do we anticipate to be the capacity at the respite center at one time?
Mayor, members of council, we anticipate that this site can take over both the operation that we had at Burton Bar and Senior Opportunities West last year, which were both around 50 individuals each. However, this is a 20,000 square foot facility, so we do want to be able to meet the need no matter what that is. We anticipate we're going to be working with our fire department and public planning and development department to get an exact number. We anticipate it being upwards of 100 individuals at any given time.
One of the other issues that we talked about at the last briefing was understanding the staffing plan for our proposed vendor for the respite center. Can you share a little bit about that?
Sure. Mayor and members of the council, Community Bridges Inc. staffing plan has two 12-hour shifts for the 24-hour location. And each shift will have a minimum of 9 staff with various levels of navigators and peer support with supervisors as well. And then Monday through Friday, OHS, Office of Homeless Solutions, will also have 2 additional staff there from 7 to 4 p.m. every day.
Okay. My last question was, my last question is about libraries, because we are extending the library hours to provide additional cooling centers. And I just wanted to have a few questions. Thank you so much. I wanted to make sure I understood where we were with the additional staffing needs, because I do believe we're going to hire some additional temp staff in order to make that happen. Yes,
thank you. Councilwoman Hodge-Washington, Mayor, members of council. So library staff has been working hard to get those positions filled. We have an opportunity to hire 40 seasonal part-time workers to come and staff extra hours at the library during the summer. On Sunday, March 16th at Burton Bar Central Library, we held a hiring event. We had about 45 City of Phoenix staff that interviewed 78 individuals, moving 65 forward in the process to get them onboarded or pre-boarded so that we can have them actually on staff by the middle of April, trained and ready to go for the beginning of this service. So we are set and ready to go with the additional staff members per approval of council today.
Thank you so much for that. And I know my questions have been very heavy at this, the logistics, but I want to mention one of the benefits I think of the heat response plan is we are also extending our library hours, not just for heat response, but also for general members of the public to participate in the library activities. So thank you for being able to do that. Mayor, those are my questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll go next to Councilwoman Pastor and then Councilwoman Guardado. Unless we should start with Councilwoman Guardado.
Yeah.
Councilwoman Guardado.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I just wanted to take a moment to express my heartfelt appreciation for the incredible work that has gone into the 2025 heat response plan. The decrease in confirmed heat-related deaths in Maricopa County from 645 in 2023 to 602 in 2024 is a significant achievement, particularly considering the challenges we faced during a record-setting heat season with 70 days above 110 degrees and an astonishing 113 consecutive days over 100 degrees. I am especially grateful for the plan's emphasis on outreach to vulnerable populations, particularly those experiencing homelessness, who represented a staggering 91% of visits to heat relief locations. This focus is crucial for ensuring that our community members receive the support they need during such extreme conditions. So just like piggybacking a little bit on some of the questions that were being asked, I guess my question is, and I don't know if this is more, like we passed the heat ordinance last year, right? Where we were gonna ask employers and different people to work with us in making sure that we held everyone accountable as we were doing this. Do we know how many of our numbers are related to those numbers? For example, you know, workers at the airport, are any of those numbers combined?
Thank you for the question, Councilwoman, Mayor, and members of council. With respect to heat-related fatalities, that information will be included in the final reporting that the county will have. So we do not specifically know in terms of the heat data or what was the case in 2024. With respect to specific worker and employee concerns, we would have to defer to our colleagues in the Human Resources Department.
Yes, because I think I think some of the questions that were being asked in terms of, when it comes to air conditioning, is it rental properties? Is it owned homes? I think being able to figure out who is it that we hold accountable around that, I think it's important, because I think as a city, we are definitely being a leader and helping during these months, and we just got to make sure that everyone else is also doing their part, because I still continue to hear that there's a lot of complaints, especially at the airport, workers filing for complaints, and those complaints are not being attended to. And we don't need to get into that right now. I think it's a different conversation, but definitely something that I think you guys are putting your best foot forward. And I think as a city, we're doing a lot, and we're asking neighbors to also do a lot. So making sure that we're holding everyone accountable to all the different ordinances that we have out there. I think it's important to making sure that we continue to lower our numbers every year. So with that being said, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to our Assistant City Manager, Lori Bays, and Inger Erickson, Deputy City Manager, Gina Montes, as well everyone at the Phoenix Fire Department and the Offices of Emergency Management, Heat Response and Mitigation, Homeless Solutions, Public Health. I know you guys work really hard every day to make an incredible impact into our community, so thank you guys so much for all of your hard work. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much, and important to recognize, led by Phoenix City Councilwoman, we had the Arizona leading worker protection ordinance that we passed at this body last year. Councilwoman Pastor.
Thank you, Mayor. I first would like to actually thank the mayor for a great discussion about the respite center, because I had some reservations regarding where the location was, and the fact that downtown, we have placed millions and millions of dollars to build downtown and get it back to the level that we would like to see inactive. But her and I talked deeply about it, and one of the things and items that I see in the packet is security, because we talked about security. What I don't see in the packet is security for the libraries. And I'm not sure if that's in a different, because I was looking through each item and I don't know if it's item 3 that's in addition to, or where it's at, but I do want to have that discussion. What I want to ask is this a new contract for CBI?
Mayor, members of council, yes, this will be a new contract with CBI for this summer. We did have a contract with them last summer as well, and this one will be a new, fresh contract this summer.
And what's the current contract that we have right now with CBI?
We have several, Mayor, members of council, we have several contracts with CBI, none for heat respite. This will be a new contract just for heat respite services for
I understand that, but I want to know what the total cost that we have, the total cost of all our CBI's contracts.
Mayor, members of council, I can pull that for you and get that to you later today.
Okay. Is it millions and millions of dollars? Is it?
Mayor, Councilwoman Pastor, we can get you the total. The contracts we have are mainly for the outreach contract, and then they also operate. We have contracts for operation of shelters. They're operating the Phoenix Navigation Center, and then we contract with them. We provide funding for other projects as well. And so we'd have to get the total for you later, but it is a significant amount.
Yes, and that's why I'm asking that. That's why I'm asking the question, because I want to understand why we continue to put millions and millions of dollars into CBI, and when we know that there's other nonprofits that also do this type of service. So I'm trying to get some clarity around this and understand. That's just where I'm at right now. So in this 1.7 million, that's for the respite, item 3, it states that, and I want to know if it's included in the 1.7 million or if it's in addition to, that we're going to pay another 2.9 million, I think, to CBI.
Mayor, members of council, the 1.7 million was just for the 20 West Jackson site. That is for them to provide all of the 24-hour services and as well as their own private security for inside the 20 West Jackson site. Additionally, we'll have another ISB for the services at all 3 libraries for the extended hour site. However, they are not providing the security services at those libraries. That is included in the library staffing model.
Okay, so it's about 4.6, I don't know. I don't have my calculator right here, but about approximately $4.6 million that we will be voting on today. Something like that.
Councilman Pastor, it's $4.9 million is our estimated,
Okay.
our total.
Close. No, is the 4.9 including the 2.9?
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, 4.6. All right, I just wanted to get some clarity on that. I would like to add security to the libraries. So I don't know where that comes from.
Councilman Pastor, Mayor, and members of council, that would be me. So I can speak to library security is included in the library staffing model. We're hiring 9 additional security guards in that 40 part-time seasonal staff that will continue, the library security model through those 10 o'clock hour, Monday through Saturday, and then additionally on those Sunday hours from noon to 10 p.m.
Okay, thank you. I just
welcome.
wanted to make sure that was there for our constituents. And then secondly, thirdly, fourth, I would like to see a breakdown of this budget. It's not in the packet, so I'm not sure, and it wasn't in the presentation of the breakdown of where the 4.9 million is going and where the chunk is going. I believe it's to CBI. One of the things that I have heard throughout the community, and in particular my town hall, forum, community chat, whatever you want to call it, is that CBI, community have challenges with CBI and some of the behaviors of CBI. So one of the things that came out of the meeting, as she spoke passionately about it, was that she asked if we are auditing. And so I want to know how we're auditing this piece over this summer of all the organizations that are participating in this piece. And in the audit, how are we holding them accountable? And if they're not meeting what they need to meet, what are we doing? So are we doing that?
Mayor, Councilman Pastor, I'm going to have Rachel talk in detail about kind of how we monitor our contracts, but I do want to comment that with the creation of the Office of Homeless Solutions, we do manage our contracts very closely in terms of the quality. Our liaison, our deputy director, we have a special projects administrator that is very engaged. They are all very engaged with the providers, and they have different assignments to ensure that the projects and programs and services are going well, and that when we identify issues, we're acting on them. In terms of kind of the formal audits, are you talking a financial audit or both financial and programmatic? And we can address both.
I'm talking about all of it.
So in terms of specific
delivery of services, financial, I think we have to be good stewards of our dollars.
Absolutely. Rachel, if you want to elaborate on more specifics on that.
Mayor, members of council, Councilwoman Pastor. So yes, we are planning a large fiscal audit of CBI for their multiple contracts next year. And then also my team does provide programmatic audits as well. So we will be, we do a formal in-person look at all of the client records, look at their HMIS records, and that happens at least every other year, depending on the number of contracts. But specifically for heat relief, we will have OHS staff in person, on site, sort of leading this effort in partnership with CBI, Monday through Friday, every day. In fact, last year it ended up being 7 days a week for several weeks in the summer as well. So we're not only doing fiscal monitoring at the fiscal level, programmatic monitoring formally with their contracts, and then sort of on-site monitoring daily.
Thank you. And is this contract for 6 months? How long does it go? I know it starts May,
Yes.
but I don't know where it ends.
I believe it's a year.
Is it
And the reason it is a year is to enable us to close out, and if it extends, the heat season extends. And if you have anything to add, Rachel?
Yes, Mayor, members of council, last year our contracts were May 1 through September 30th, and we ended up having to extend them. This year we just went ahead and did it for a year, knowing that we don't want that administrative burden if we have to go another week, another 2 weeks, another 3 weeks, just to make sure that we're covered.
Okay, so now that led me to another question. So we're going to approve 4.9 million for a year, when I thought this was for, well, it is for heat. It's part of the heat response plan, but really for the respite piece. So I need clarity because I think now I have a totally different thought.
Yes, Mayor, Councilman Pastor, the heat plan will go May 1st, definitely through September 30th. We have an option to extend into October like we did in 2024 in the event that the heat season extends like it did last year. So that is the plan. That is really what we have funding for. We don't have funding to go beyond that. Some of the contract terms and timeframes were put in place to enable us to efficiently close things out, to make sure that we don't have to come back unnecessarily to council for something you've already authorized. So the season is May 1st, anticipated for the respite centers to close September 30th, option to extend into the summer for the 24/7 for that heat, if the heat extends.
Okay. Is the rent that we are paying for till September, or is it till October, or is it till November?
The lease goes through September 30th with, again, an option to extend. I believe it's by month if we needed it to extend. So we could extend for an additional month-to-month basis if needed.
All right, I'm just a little concerned about voting for 4.9 million in the sense that what I heard was it is for a year. It May to September with the option of extension to October is there. But if there are any monies that have not been spent, you have the ability to use them throughout the year. And I'm getting faces looking at me, so I'm not sure
Mayor,
if
members
I'm
of
right.
council, if I may read from the report, the term of the lease is 5 months beginning April 14th through September 30th with an automatic option to continue therein on a month-to-month basis. So that's what it reads. That's what the contract is.
Yeah.
You have the option, but we don't necessarily have to.
Right. I guess what I'm saying is if I add up everything that we just discussed, from mid-April to the end of September, will that be 4.9 million?
Yes, Mayor, Councilman Pastor, members of the council, that is the cost. It is $4.9 million for the summer.
Is that a clarifying question on the last answer? Okay, we'll go to you for a clarifying question, and then we'll go to the Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity to clarify. I guess my question was on, partly, you said the 4.9 is for the summer. even though, for example, the CBI contract is for up to 14 months. Is the 2.9 million in the CBI contract the full extent of what we would incur if we went to 14 months, or is that the amount we incur for 5 months, the minimum?
That's for the five-month period. It was administratively helpful and beneficial to have the contract go because we end up closing out the contract and billing that comes in. And so for that reason, and I apologize, it's creating some confusion, but it is our intent, and it's a summer heat respite with the 5-month period. So.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a clarifying, but I will yield to Council.
All right, we'll let the Vice Mayor go, and then I'll come back to you as soon as the Vice Mayor is done.
Maybe my first question will help put a bow on this one. If you all need to go past September 30th, and this contract, these recommendations are approved today, but then you have to go past September 30th, will you need to come back to us for more money?
We believe we have the funding built in if we had to extend into October.
To extend into October?
Yes.
Okay, and if there was money left over, let's say we get to end on September 30th, may God and Mother Nature bless us with a short summer, that money would just go back into the budget.
Correct. The funding sources, a lot of it is ARPA dollars, so that funding will be spent first, and that needs to be spent. And then the opioid funding, that could carry over into the following year. So we did have some funding that we didn't spend last summer out of the different ARPA sources, both county and ours, and so we were able to use those funds this summer.
Okay, thank you. So congratulations on the decrease in heat-related deaths, as well as the reduction in calls to our 911's dispatch for emergency services. Additionally, on slide 22, it says that their suspected overdoses, it looks like you're saying they were reduced by about 20% during the summer months. Is there someone who could maybe explain why we think that number, that there was a reduction in our deaths? Or overdoses, sorry, they were not deaths, suspected overdoses.
Vice Mayor, thank you for the question, Mayor and council members. Unfortunately, our colleague from the Office of Public Health, who is most familiar with those data, was not able to join us today, but we'd be very happy to follow up with you as soon as we can confirm the statistics with you.
Okay, I appreciate that. Can you tell us how many individuals visited our heat relief centers during the 2024 season and during the hours when we tracked visits?
Vice Mayor, thank you for the question. Mayor and council members, at the 5 sites during their extended or additional service periods, that would be the full 24/7 at Burton Bar, the overnight at Senior Opportunities West, and only the extended hours at the 3 library locations, there were approximately 35,000 visits, and our best estimate is that those visits were made by 5,000 unique individuals.
And do we know about how many of those 5,000 unique individuals accepted services?
I would like to defer to my colleague,
Thank you.
Rachel Milne, on that one. Thank you.
Mayor, members of council, 962 individuals accepted a placement in shelter, housing, treatment programs, family reunification programs. So we had 962 placements.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to talk about or have you tell me about what kind of community stakeholder involvement, outreach, or coordination occurred for the 3 public library areas that are out in the individual districts.
Sure, Mayor and members of council, we have met with several stakeholders at each one of the libraries. I'll start with maybe Cholla Library. We met with Shannon McBride, a representative from the Metro Center Development, and a representative from the Doubletree Hotel. For the Harmon Library, we met with Phoenix Revitalization Corporation and Central Park Neighborhood, and we're pending a meeting with Grant Park and Harmon Park neighborhood leaders. And then for Yucca Library, we met with the YMCA, and we're pending meetings with Solano School and Kimco, which is, I believe, the management company at Christown Mall.
And is Commander Lee your contact for the different precincts, police precincts that would cover those libraries?
That is
or
correct.
do you meet individually with the or the precinct commanders?
Mayor, members of council, Commander Lee has been helping coordinate all of the meetings with, he's been coordinating and meeting with the commanders, but we did have a meeting with all of the commanders as well regarding 20 West Jackson.
Okay, and you referenced that there is a phone number for the folks at 20 West Jackson to call in that surrounding area. Who or how would the community members, business owners around these 3 libraries call if they have concerns?
We are coordinating a telephone number that would be a call, like one number that would reach someone, one of us on the team, to attend to any concerns or questions during open traditional library hours as well as extended hour heat relief. So we will have a phone number that will directly call a library staff member or someone from the Heat Unified team.
Okay, and I do want to just put on the record that I do understand and I hope the community will use it and welcome the need for just extending the library hours for everyone. However, I did express to you all that I was concerned because we cannot track now numbers, or we will not be as accurately able to collect the numbers, and have that data collection and provide reports. But I do understand it does allow the community to use that resource or those resources while they're available. I was in DC a few weeks ago for NLC and happened to pass a hypothermia relief center building, and I'm curious, can you remind us the policy around just our public buildings during normal business operating hours, and how are they available as a cooling center?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council, we have a number of, I think, more than 60 sites that are identified as either hydration stations, cooling centers, where folks can come in and get a bottle of water, they can come in and get out of the heat. And so it really, those sites can be identified either through 211 or the MAG heat map. It goes on and you can go on there and find out where the locations are once it's active. So that map is still being populated for the 2025 season. And many of those are during the operating, hours of whatever the city facility might be. And there's a number of different facilities.
And does that include Phoenix City Hall?
Does that include, you want to address that?
Vice Mayor, thank you for the question. Mayor and council members, historically, Phoenix City Hall has not been listed as a heat relief network location. What I might add is that the packet and the plan references increased engagement with the city employee base to build knowledge of the heat response, the breadth of the heat response programs. So it's our hope, we've been working closely with human resources to develop content here. It's our hope that every city employee is empowered and well positioned to help refer people to the formal heat relief network sites, as well as the transportation resources that could get them there.
Okay. Now I'd like to talk about 20 West Jackson. You talked about meeting with Shannon McBride and I hope Gordon James from the Metro Center area, but Shannon was the first in City of Phoenix to create 19 North, and those businesses came together and created that district, and they collected the authority to arrest for those businesses, and they pay for private security. I worry about that warehouse district, given all the dollars we've invested in there. So I want to know, are we going to be able to have the same kind of network for the warehouse district, those boundaries, and if you get trespassed in one place, you're trespassed from any private businesses in that area?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, we are looking at the model that they've created up around Shannon McBride and the 19 North. And that is something that we'll let you know how that progresses. I can tell you that we have already begun working with the property owners to ensure that their ATAs, their authorities to arrest, are in place so that we have those all at the surrounding properties in time for the start of the heat season, May 1st, if we don't already have them. And for those who may not understand, what that allows is for if someone's unauthorized on private property. The police department can address those kinds of problems, and so that is a tool that's available throughout the city, and we will make a special effort and have already begun that effort with those property owners and the warehouse house council to ensure we have all the tools in place for safety.
And I would, if I could, recommend that we get those on record before May 1st, but create that map so that we can hand out that map at the center so folks know that those are not places that they should be. They have the cooling center, there are other places, but I would hope we're doing all we can. So thank you for that. The other questions I have are, you talked about the community grants. We provide heat relief community grants to at least 60 community partner organizations in 2024. What I'm weary of from my experience, and I will say it was from 2023, is that Maricopa County provided a grant to Glendale, the city of Glendale, and then city of Glendale gave it to one of their partners who came to Phoenix and worked out of a church and created some concerns and issues. So when we give grants to community partners, what do we ask them about what they're going to do with their grant money, and how do we coordinate, or do we make them coordinate with those surrounding businesses and communities where they're going to be?
Thank you for the question, Vice Mayor. Mayors and member of council, as one minor point of clarification, 18 organizations as grant recipients the past couple of years. 60 groups have participated in the water distribution program.
I apologize. Thank
18
you.
Grantees, just to be sure we had it clear. We have been evolving the grant program over the past couple of years with your guidance, and one of the new expectations that we set for grantees in 2024 was that they were part of a physical heat relief location. There were some organizations that participated in the first cohort that conducted more street outreach related to heat relief that were grandfathered in 2024, but we have heard your feedback and concerns and are trying to focus on the physical heat relief sites with the grant program most recently.
Okay, and that leads to the water distribution, that we're giving water and we're distributing it. And I know I've asked you all this about Cortez Park last year. I bring it up again only because I had a community meeting last night, and I had several community members swear to me that the city of Phoenix was handing out water under a white tent in Cortez Park, undoing much of the work that is done the rest of the year by the police department and the Block Watch and OHS and CBI, all the partners. Walgreens came to visit me this year because they sit on the corner by Cortez Park. So again, I ask, if we give water to community partners, do we know what they do with it, where they're going, and do we ask them to interact with the businesses or the neighborhoods around where they distribute that water?
Vice Mayor, thank you for the question. Mayors and members of council, first for the record, I will reiterate and reconfirm that we are not aware of any component of city heat relief that was distributing water in Cortez Park last year, but we will continue looking for the answer to the question. With respect to how this operates moving forward, as mentioned, we'll be shifting the distribution model to have partnership with the county on this, and I think this your concern is one that we need to factor in the conversation now. Those conversations are happening on a daily basis in terms of what the pickup looks like, what the agreements and conversations are. So now's the perfect time to fold your concern into that process, and we'll be happy to do so.
Okay, and I don't mean that just for my community and the partner. I think that it is for every district, the entire city, that we do need to get resources out, but we need to make sure we are continuing to work with the stakeholders and businesses around there so that we set expectations and we are working to keep them safe and secure while keeping this population safe and secure as well. So I appreciate you answering these questions again. It was a done deal until it got brought up again last night. So thank you. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hodge Washington.
Thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity to ask a question that I missed. I wanted to ask a couple of questions regarding I've heard about the process of identifying 20 West Jackson. I want to talk a little bit about the process of identifying CBI as the heat respite relief operator. Based on what I gathered from the information, there was not an RFP submitted. It was simply because they were listed on the qualified vendors list. Is that correct?
Mayor, members of council, last year we reached out to all of our qualified vendors list and asked them to put together a proposal for what it would look like to do our summer heat respite operations, and they were selected off of that list. And then this year we continued to utilize them for our operations.
So last year you were talking about the request was made for 2024?
2024 summer, correct.
Okay, so we did not do an active solicitation for 2025?
We did not.
How does the contract amount compare for 2024 to what we have presented to now for us in 2025?
Mayor, members of council, it is a little bit higher. We did learn a lot of lessons last year in what we did in 2024, and we asked for some changes, but I can definitely get you sort of the exact amount spent on CBI last year compared with this year.
When we say a little higher, if you were to take out, my understanding from what you've said thus far is it does include for inside security, which was not accounted for last year. Do you have an idea of what the difference was if we were to take out the security costs?
Mayor and members of council, just to be clear, we did have security in CBI's contract last year as well. One of the bigger items for this year is the size of 20 West Jackson is going to require more staff at that location than we did at our other locations. The other large expense that CBI has for this year is we're starting with police overtime beginning May 1. Last year that didn't start until midsummer, and that is a part of their contract as well.
But I thought that police overtime was a separate item from the CBI contract, because I thought the CBI contract was 2.9, and then there was a area for the police contract for a separate $700,000. So am I?
Mayor, members of council, Councilwoman Hodge Washington. So the $2.9 million will help us reimburse CBI for that $700,000 expense. CBI will be entering into a contract with police, if approved today, for that contract, and then our OHS's contract with CBI will help them to reimburse and pay for that service.
So let me come back to that on the police contract, but I want to stick a little bit on the CBI and the lack. My concern about the process of taking I feel like this was a significant contract that may have benefited from an actual outreach process to make sure that we are receiving a competitive bid. And although we may not have received, for lack of a better word, the type of interest that we would have wanted last year, I don't think that precluded, or that should have precluded us looking for actually doing a competitive process this year. Can you talk to that?
Mayor, members of council, we did not go forward with a competitive process this year, really based on what we learned last year and wanting to build on that operation that we did eventually get into a really good rhythm with CBI. So we did move forward with a request to move forward directly with CBI based on what we learned last year.
And if I could real quick, Mayor, Councilwoman Hodge Washington, the process of establishing the QVL is a solicitation. It is a formal solicitation, and there are qualifications. So it is procured. There is a time limit to that vendor list, which will expire at some point. I don't have the date off the top of my head, but that is considered a formal solicitation. I hear what you're saying,
Okay.
but it was procured.
So they met the requirements in general, but it was not specific for this location and this operation. That's where my concern comes from. I want to make sure that we are prudent with the resources that we do have. We have resources as a result of some federal action through ARPA fund, a number of those things, and they are going to go away eventually, and it's going to be on the city to be able to sustain those. And I want to ensure that we are not setting a precedent of certain types of course of conduct going forward, as well as the amounts that are to be paid for this, because we are going to be the ones that are going to be tasked with figuring out the council will be tasked with trying to figure out how to do that. And if we're not starting off with a baseline that's competitive, where we have multiple bidders looking towards what they can offer at this site, I think we're doing ourselves a disservice, and I just wanted to point that out. I understand the desire to maintain relationships and build on those relationships, but I also want to make sure that we are not closing the opportunity for other potential vendors to bid on this work and provide us, as any other business, with competitive bids to do the work that we need to serve our community. So I wanted to ensure that I stated that. It's no secret, we've had some qualms with, I've had some qualms regarding the qualified vendor list and the way that it has been handled. And this is, I hate to say, it doesn't add to some of my concerns regarding that. I think this is a contract that we I think the lessons learned should have been put into more of an extensive RFP of some sort to give us the opportunity to see whether or not Community Bridges would have been the right partner for us going forward. As much as we want to establish relationships, I have to say that we want to make sure that we are being competitive and we are allowing other vendors the opportunity to bid for this type of project. And I wanted to go back to one of the questions that you said, that it included additional staffing for this larger site. And maybe my recollection is incorrect, and feel free to correct it, but I thought that CBI also provided staff to our different sites throughout the city. Is that correct?
Mayor, members of council, yes, they staffed all 5 locations last year.
Okay. So my assumption is I would think that we would have been just using the numbers or the dollars for those 5 locations and kind of consolidating that staff into one central location. And with that consolidation, we would have expected to see some level of cost savings.
Yeah, Mayor, members of council, yes, I will say we have a larger site that is going to have a larger staffing presence than both the Burton Bar Library and Senior Opportunities combined. And that's really, between that staffing level and the increased police department costs are the 2 main increases in CBI staff. And if I may, one more, a lot of the things that the library covered last year at Burton Bar Library are now being passed on to CBI. That's in their contract for the janitorial services and everything needed at 20 West Jackson.
And then with the new site being as large as it is, I have not physically seen the inside of the site, and I'm just concerned about if we're responsible for utilities as stated in the packet, or if the landlord if it's included in our rent, I'm concerned about whether or not we are cooling and keeping climate control at a site that we may not have enough individuals to make it, not to make it worthwhile, because every individual is worthwhile. But is there capacity within that area to kind of section off which areas we are actually actively using?
Mayor, members of council, yes, this site has a designated space that will just be for families. We'll have a designated space just for women who don't necessarily want to be in the general population, and a section just for general population. But there are several spaces on the site, such as office spaces, that we don't intend on using for clients necessarily.
And I thank you for that clarification, but I think my question was more so, for example, if we have this huge 21,000 square foot facility open, and we are seeing that on a daily basis, we're probably seeing 25 to 50 people come in when the site capacity is closer to 100 people. Is there any option or opportunity for us to minimize the area that is actually being cooled? Because at the end of the day, we also want to be good stewards of the resources that we have. So we're not cooling this entire facility unless we have to. And I know it's difficult to estimate this, and because we're going to a new site, I'm just concerned that we are I want us to have the capacity if we need to, but I also want to make sure that we can downsize internally if we need to as well.
Mayor, Councilwoman Hodge-Washington, that's something we're not prepared to answer fully today. We will definitely look into it. It is a warehouse space, and there are some walls that don't go all the way to the ceiling to describe it, that's kind of sectioned off. And so I'm not clear whether or not we could do that, but we will explore whether or not we can and get back to you on that. So we absolutely understand what you're saying in terms of trying to save energy, and if there's ways that we can partition off or have zones that don't need as much AC as others, we're absolutely going to explore that and address that.
And I want to go back to make sure my questions are, I'm trying just to make sure we're not wasteful. I do believe that the heat respite center is necessary. I'm not saying that we don't want to do it. I just want to make sure that as we transition to a new model, that we are making sure that we are being efficient and not just, and we are good financial stewards. So thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity to ask my questions. Thank you for answering my questions, everyone.
Thank you. Councilwoman Pastor. All right. Any additional questions? Councilman Glendale Elvira, do you have a motion?
Mayor, before I make my motion, I have a few comments. Yesterday, when I was interviewed by different news stations, I said that the Arizona heat is unrelenting and our approach must be unrelenting. And I do believe that this plan meets that criteria. I know the staff has worked hard and diligently to ensure that we can protect as many lives as possible. We see that the arrow is pointing downward in many indicators that are important in saving lives. Is this plan perfect? No, but there will be modifications and there will be improvements made along the way. It's important that this council stay informed, and so I'll be asking for staff to make sure that they provide the necessary information that's been requested by members of this council, and to ensure that that's included as public record so that that can be inspected not only by the council, but by the public. Last night I was reminded about why this plan is so important. I got home after cooking dinner with the firefighters and our air conditioning broke. And so it was warm for all of us, including our dog, Georgie. We opened all the windows, and fortunately it was fixed this morning. But for many people in our community, they're not so lucky, or they go without completely throughout the whole summer. That's why this plan is so important, that for people to have that accessibility available. And let's face it, not everyone is going to be happy with individuals that will be within their neighborhood or within their block. They're undefended many times. They're mistreated a lot of the time. But we have a moral obligation to ensure that we are doing our part, even though there are other communities that are not. And that's a separate problem and a discussion for another day. But I strongly believe in this plan, and I have visited the site of the next respite center. It is large, and Councilwoman Keisha Hodge-Washington makes a good point, because we also have to think in sustainability and be responsible stewards for the environment and ensuring that we're not spending money that doesn't need to be spent. But the thing that really makes me support this center is the fact that there will be designated areas for general population, for women, and mostly for families. And that includes children. And I want to make sure that they have a safe space at all times when they're in our care. Mayor, I move to approve item 1, approval of the City of Phoenix 2025 Heat Response Plan.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We'll go to public comment. We'll go with in-person first and then virtual. We'll begin with Cleo, followed by Stacy.
Mayor, can I ask one question?
Please.
Councilman. In the maker of the motion, when you were asking for the direction that they can keep us informed, was that part of the motion, or were you just adding that as a reminder? I'm sorry.
Mayor, I'll include it as part of the motion if that's okay.
Second.
I think that would be helpful. I think so. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman Stark. So again, Cleo, if you want to come on down.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I believe on your heat relief, I'm one of those 18 vendors that are allowed to share in this incredible responsibility. We kind of do it a little different in Sunny Slope. We're almost embedded with each other. I'm embedded with the Office of Homeless Solutions. Michelle and Julia, I talk to every week. With respect to the deputy city managers, I also talk with them. we're all collaboratively trying to work on one thing, is I would like to one day come here and oppose whatever we do for heat relief because we don't need it anymore. I work second shift. I work between the seams. When everybody goes home, I know that family. And it took 6 different staff agencies to help that family. With what you're attempting to do at Jackson, you can't take children to Burton Bar. It doesn't work. We need something like what they do at Jackson so we can collaborate, get that family isolated, get some impact services to them, and not determine if they're just overheated from the weather, but determine what services are going to not only save their lives, but change their lives. That's the reason why we need this collaborative approach, and nobody else does it better in Phoenix, because if they was, I'd be over there. I thank you for the privilege of talking about what my small nonprofit does. We predominantly are in 3 in District 1, but we're trying to do more with what resources we have, and I do heat relief right now. We actually start in February to March. A guy named David told us we needed to do it all year long. And I just thank you for the opportunity. We couldn't do it without you guys' help. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your partnership and that testimony. And I should have clarified, we'll do 1 public comment on item 1 and then 1 on items 2 through 5. Stacy in person, followed by Reverend Sexton, virtual.
I am not that tall. Mayor, would you be okay? And hello, thank you, Mayor, Council. Does that sound weird? It's very echoey. Would you be okay with me just combining my comments in one fell swoop?
Okay, can we get 4 minutes?
And I think
and wait, if you could wait till the clock starts. All right, go.
I first want to state on the public record that, as some people stated, the confirmed heat death list isn't yet fully available, but heat deaths are historically undercounted, and like reporting that has occurred in other states like Texas, I believe and will prove eventually that there are many deaths, especially within our unsheltered community, where heat absolutely was a contributor to these deaths, but they are not being counted. I just think for this city to be taking, by all of you, like some crazy victory lap over a handful of preventable deaths is gross, personally. More than 1,000 unsheltered residents died from all number of things in Maricopa County in 2024, FYI, which is another, in my opinion, failure of the city. As my councilwoman pointed out, I was trying to help a 78-year-old unsheltered woman this whole weekend and still today. Within your plan, I'm still not seeing simple low-hanging fruit like plastering posters with info at convenience stores and public bus and light rail stops. There's no mention of whether free transport will still be available to people. There's no solutions for how to keep people safe who do have broken ACs, or how they can get fast funding for repair. A handful of water fountains in the sprawling city doesn't cut it. How often does this city actually enforce your cooling policy for landlords? Because I hear from community on the regular that it's not very often. Why is everything date versus temp based when people die from heat from April through October? And just yesterday, when I was in the zone, it was 95 degrees in March. You talk about shaded bus stops, yet 12th Ave and Jefferson, an area with high death counts, still doesn't have a shaded bus stop, which I've personally been advocating for many, many years now. Why isn't the city or mayor advocating to have SRP stop disconnecting people's power in dangerous temperatures? They're pushing for statewide utility disconnect rules. I say these things knowing there are people working on these issues who deeply care. This isn't meant to disparage them, but as someone who has read every single heat death report for Maricopa County for many, many years now. And not just the medical examiner's report. I read the investigator reports where there's a whole lot of details and information. Everyone for years before there was even press on it. I can tell you that a lot of lives could have been saved by a more proactive versus reactive response to these issues. Many of you have been here watching this unfold for all these years. And it's my personal opinion that Phoenix is still failing to protect our most vulnerable residents. I also find the plan somewhat vapid, if I'm being honest. And I feel it's important to add that people at overnight cooling centers were not even allowed to lie down last year. So there's a difference between a shelter and a cooling center, just not being able to lie down overnight, which I find is cruel, honestly. And also, to some of the questions getting asked today, that data could be gathered really simply if the death investigators in not just Maricopa County, but all counties used the CDC supplemental heat death investigator form. It is a fill-in-the-blank form. I did an interview with the New York Times about it last summer. According to Will Humble, it is a very simple rule change at the state level with public health. And there was at least one man, and I think actually two, who died right outside of City Hall.
Reverend Sexton, followed by Jenny Span.
Thank you so much, Mayor and Council. It is an honor to be able to speak to you today. My name is Reverend Katie Sexton. I serve as Executive Director of the Arizona Faith Network, a multi-faith network throughout the state of Arizona. Since many years ago, we've been working very closely with the city of Phoenix and regarding the heat response and mitigation plan. We've worked closely and have been working hard to bridge our resources both through the city and through our network of faith-based locations to respond to the urgent needs of our heat vulnerable neighbors. From hosting cooling stations to respite centers and sharing both materials and volunteers, we have worked side by side with the city and city leaders and many of you to protect the lives of those most impacted by extreme heat. Today, I stand in support of this plan to say we are grateful for the critical and truly remarkable work of the City of Phoenix and the heat response and mitigation team. Their leadership is not only saving lives here at home, it is setting the standards for cities around the country. This team's innovative, equity-driven, and community-based approach is a model of how local governments can respond to the rising heat crisis throughout our country. This is a model of how we can both approach with urgency and compassion and also readily admit that there is more to do. We know it's not perfect, but we are doing more in the city of Phoenix through partnerships and through this plan than others are doing throughout the entire country. This is reflected in the leadership of this 2025 heat relief plan, and it's reflected in the ongoing long-term work towards mitigation strategies that will reduce massively our death rate for those impacted by heat. Extreme heat for people of faith is a moral issue. It's a test of our shared humanity, and we are proud to call ourselves partners of the City of Phoenix and to continue to meet this challenge with care, equity, and resilience, to be on the ground day by day.
Jenny Span will be our final speaker.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm a clinical assistant professor at Arizona State University with the Edson College of Nursing and Health Innovation. I want to thank you for this opportunity to speak to how the city's heat relief program has been integral to the partnership between the City of Phoenix and ASU's pre-licensure nursing program. For the last 16 years, I have worked as a community-based nurse in the Phoenix metropolitan area and have come to know firsthand how our unique environmental challenges affect people of all ages. Last summer, through the City of Phoenix Heat Relief Program, ASU nursing students were able to do wound care, mini mental health exams, mental health screenings, lice treatments, substance abuse scoring, Narcan training, harm reduction training, health surveys, and blood pressure checks. They also provided a variety of education for children as well, such as safety around water, hand washing, and nutrition. Your heat relief program fills a very important space and impacts countless lives in our community. This program also offers a unique hands-on experience for nursing students to see what healthcare in the community looks like. Often, students come to nursing school with a very narrow view of what healthcare looks like. Most of them only know what they see on Grey's Anatomy: high acuity, fast-paced, hospital-based care. Not only does this vital service get students well acquainted with heat-related health concerns, it also allows them to see the impact of these concerns in typically underserved populations. They learn how to use critical thinking to assess how a client will get needed services and understand how to find resources. Most importantly, they will learn how our basic nursing tenets of compassion and advocacy are necessary to support all client populations in the community. Thank you for your continued support of this program and the ongoing partnership with ASU.
Thank you. That concludes our public comment. Do any council members have additional comments or questions? Councilwoman Hodge Washington.
Thank you, Mayor. Just have a couple of questions based on what we've heard during the public comment. Specifically, I want to talk a little bit about how we, some of our strategies to engage the community for heat readiness, which is strategy 7. I see in action 7.1, it talks a little bit about flyers and print communication and safety messaging to our transit riders. Are there any other mechanism in which we choose how we share this information with general members of public? Because I don't believe that it's just our unsheltered population, as the data shows, but how do we get out more of this information to our community?
Thank you, Councilwoman Hodge Washington, for the question. Mayor and council members, if any of our communication colleagues are in the room and would be happy to join me to share, I think last year it was much harder than ever to move throughout the city without encountering some of the summer safety messaging that we had, which did include messaging at transit locations. It did include digital and print billboards throughout the city. We saw similar investments made from our partners at the county. And we are having conversations about several of the other communication platforms that were mentioned earlier, including ongoing conversations with some of our regional convenience stores to leverage them as a mechanism for getting the word out. So I think we have been expanding, but can continue expanding even further to ensure that as many residents as possible are aware of what they're doing, what we're doing, and how they can access those services.
Okay. The other concern was raised regarding transportation to our centers that provide coolant centers. My understanding of how it operated last year is if we did encounter someone that needed assistance, there was a level of transportation. Can you talk about that?
Councilwoman, thank you for the question. Mayor and council members, yes, we recognize that transportation to heat relief sites is a critical part of the system. Last year, to remind the council and the listening public, free transportation to cooling centers was available through the regional 211 service during extended business hours. Those were free rides provided by a rideshare service. This year, this is an evolving conversation, a model that is the details of which are still being figured out. I'd invite my colleague from the County Health Department to share the most recent update as he understands it.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. That is correct. We are working with 211 to ensure that resource is still available. There is funding to continue that rideshare service. Over the course of last summer, it became more and more used. I don't want to say popular, but we're getting a lot of use. So we are looking for other partners as well who are willing to share resources for that.
And since you brought up 211, oftentimes I have heard concerns that that number is not always answered or responded to. Care to respond to that?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Councilwoman. We carefully went through last summer in our partnership with 211, regularly looking at the data, the number of callers they have. They collect very good data on the length of time it takes to answer those calls and what resources they're able to provide. And we felt like they were a really critical part of our effort last summer to expand access to the heat relief network by adding a call-in component to what traditionally has been the HRN map on the website. So we think that's a really important part of this response.
I'm sorry, say the last part again regarding the website.
So the heat relief network, the map on the website that is maintained by MAG, is only accessible via the web. So we think having a call-in access point so that people can call as opposed to log on is really important to being able to find those sites.
I would agree with you because not everyone has access to the internet to figure out which website they need to find the location. So I definitely would be supportive of that. My other question goes to, I have a couple questions, but they go to, I guess, neighborhood services, because they do the enforcement of broken AC and the landlord. And I saw Spencer a minute ago. He may have stepped out. Okay. Well, I don't know if anyone else can answer this question regarding the resources that were available for, I know in some cases we do provide air conditioning, temporary air conditioning. I'm sorry, Spencer, he's racing. We'll wait on you. Bless you. Thank you for joining us up here. With respect to the air-conditioned broken units, or can you tell us about the service that the city does provide to our residents that have run into a broken air-conditioned unit?
Absolutely. Mayor, Councilwoman, the Neighborhood Services Department provides a weatherization program with funding from the state and the federal government. Sorry, out of breath, ran upstairs.
No worries.
And so the intent of the program is to make the heating and cooling systems within a home more efficient. However, one of the key elements to that program is being able to provide replacement AC units when systems do fail for eligible homeowners.
And have we gotten to a point, do you recall, in summer of 2024, did we get to a point where our request or the demand for the available temporary units exceeded the available supply?
Councilwoman, no. However, I will say that we did reach a point where we couldn't keep up with demand. We partner with Foundation for Senior Living, FSL, and that was one of the issues last summer. The other thing that I would note is it does take some time to qualify folks and complete the work. So our immediate response is to provide a temporary portable cooling system during that time.
Okay. And do you would you say you were able to keep up with the demand for the temporary cooling system?
Mayor,
Systems? Sorry.
Councilwoman, yes, absolutely.
Okay. And can we talk a little bit about the enforcement of landlords that fail to provide the fail to ensure that the premises have working units?
Yes, Mayor, Councilwoman Hodge Washington, we do enforce the city's cooling ordinance. Last summer, we had approximately 180 cases. About 55 of those ended up having no violation, with 115 ending up with a notice of ordinance violation, and 11 of those a citation. And what that tells me is most of our landlords are responsive once we are engaged. Once we do begin our process and engage with those landlords, most very quickly resolve the issue. We only had 11 that went to citation.
And can you give us an idea of what is the extent of that process? Like, how long does it take from a resident calling in with concern versus a resolution?
Mayor, Councilwoman, great question. We always encourage folks to reach out first to our Human Services Department through the landlord-tenant counselors, where they're provided education about their rights so they can help secure those rights prior to our involvement on the code enforcement side. We work very closely with the Human Services Department, and once that's completed, we'll go out the very same day to take readings of the temperature and to provide that instant communication as best as we can with the landlord. In most cases, if they are not cooling sufficiently, we will issue a notice of ordinance violation that day, and it's a 24-hour notice. If they don't have resolution of some kind by the next day, we would issue a citation.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. And I want to make sure my notes are accurate here. When we talk about not having when you originally talked about not having the resources, well, you realized the demand for resources was greater than the supply. I presume you were talking about resources for the actual repairs. Is that correct?
Mayor, Councilwoman, absolutely.
Okay. Can you give us an idea of what the disparity or the looks like?
So as I mentioned, we do have enough funding to do the repair ultimately. The delay was just in timing. Last summer was particularly long. And so towards the end, within the last couple of months, our contractor was overwhelmed with with the demand. And so it took a little bit longer. So in some of those cases, it extended by a couple of months longer than what we otherwise would hope to see.
Okay. And given that what I've heard, it seems like it's a process, some process issues need to be shore up. Have we made some changes, or do we have some changes in the pipeline to address those processy concerns?
Mayor, Councilwoman, yes, we are continually looking at this program, working with that partner and looking at all options, including staffing up, helping to push for resolution of cases that we've had prior to the summer months, so that we can build that capacity, as well as working with various subcontractors that they work with, so that they have additional capacity to complete that work.
Okay, I'm coming up on my last 100 questions for you. But what do we normally anticipate that our contractor would be able to complete the repairs? Is there a time frame?
Mayor, Councilwoman, it depends. And I would stress that, again, the focus of the program is weatherization and efficiency. So it's not just simply the replacement of the HVAC system. It also includes sealing ducts, replacing windows, and various other things in order to make the home more efficient. Our focus, however, of course, in the summer months is that replacement of that HVAC unit. So they work as quickly as possible. Usually it's about a month lead time of working through all the various requirements when it comes to getting their application, vetting that application, the other elements that are required, and then entering into the individual contract for the work that needs to be performed. Once they're past all of that stage, then it's usually a very quick resolution, as short as a week in some cases.
Okay, thank you for that. Those are my questions for you on that. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Your question earlier about 211 reminded me we do not have a stable funding source right now in Arizona, and that is a real challenge. That is one for another day, but hopefully the state legislature will address that. Councilman Galindo Alvira.
Mayor, before you call for roll call, I want to say thank you to my colleague from District 8 for the questions that she asked, getting that clarity. These are complex issues that are not easily resolved overnight. I'm glad that she is on point with her questions, especially as it pertains to communications. As we see, it just doesn't happen. There is a process, there has to be eligibility, and that is also to safeguard the taxpayer's dollar. Thank you, Councilwoman Keisha Hodge Washington.
Mayor, members of the council, would you like Dan Wilson, our communications director, to kind of go over?
Can you say, we can't hear you. You're on, but you're not close enough.
My apologies. Is that better?
It is.
Yes.
Okay. I was asking, Mayor, members of the council, would you like Dan Wilson, our communications director, to go over high level the communications plan for these efforts?
Yes, that would be greatly appreciated.
All right, Mayor and members of council. We learned a lot of good lessons last year about how to reach individuals. We used multiple different sources. We created pamphlets that were available to businesses to hand out. We worked with DPI, with Visit Phoenix to help distribute those. We did a unique purchase of advertising where it was targeted around the areas of the cooling centers, so that we could target people who were in those areas to make them aware of the available resources. We worked with the transit department to put information into the bus stops so that people who are at bus stops can find that information quickly. And these are things that we'll continue to do this year. Social media actually is a really valuable tool in this, because we can geofence that and reach people who are looking, who are doing searches for this kind of thing. We can target people who are looking for cooling centers and get that information into their hands.
Thank you. Councilman Galindo Alvira.
Thank you. One of the things that I'd recommend is radio, because there isn't always internet accessibility for many in our community. So how can we provide strategies, strategies that target individuals who don't have access to the internet. For example, going on different newspapers that now have podcasts and so forth, so that we're able to reach them, and this information is out there and it can also be circulated again. For example, for the Latino community, use of mobile phones is overperforming. So how do we reach that community through your strategies? I'd really be interested in the work that you all can do that. Not today, but another time.
Yeah, absolutely. And Councilman Galindo Albreda and Mayor and the rest of the council, that is something that we do as well. We have a Spanish-speaking PIO who is really embedded with the Spanish media, and we every week we get an interview in Spanish on a topic that we choose, and we did heat response and heat mitigation frequently, and we'll do that again this year.
Councilwoman Pastor.
Yes, this one's for Spencer. Spencer, you talked about contractors being overwhelmed. Is there a possibility that we can add additional contractors in order for them not to be overwhelmed? And if they're overwhelmed, then we move that work to a different contractor?
Mayor and Councilwoman Pastor, absolutely. That is something that we are certainly interested in doing and working with our primary contractor, Foundation for Senior Living, to do so.
Okay. So am I hearing this correctly? We are going to do that for this summer and have additional contractors for this piece? Because I don't want to be in the middle of the summer and then be told our contractor is overwhelmed and we weren't able to add additional. So I would like to see additional contractors added so that we can move at the capacity we need to move.
Mayor, Councilwoman, understood.
Okay, process. Sometimes we hinder ourselves in building process. What is needed in order to change the process to qualify for air condition or any of the weatherization piece that we can look at today in order for it to be changed for tomorrow as we start to hit these summer months, so that maybe we're asking some unnecessary questions and we can move the process faster.
Mayor, Councilwoman, there are a couple of things that we're particularly looking at for this summer. One is we are nearly fully staffed with our housing rehab specialist, which we were not at the beginning of last summer. And so I think that will facilitate a more expedited process. The second thing is our community workers are able to go out to the homes in order to collect paperwork. We were doing that last summer as well. However, we have improved some of that communication in that process so that we're not waiting for them to request. It's more of an initiative that we lead, where we're asking questions about, can we come on whatever date in order to collect that paperwork. And then the one other item that we're working on is a more streamlined process. We know that not everyone has internet connectivity and the ability to submit information online. However, we are working on a new intake tool that will make that substantially easier than it has been in the past in order to get those applications.
And it will be ready by the time we hit May?
Mayor, Councilwoman, no.
Okay.
That particular tool will not. This summer, we likely will be still working primarily from our paper application and our existing online forms until we work out the kinks. We don't want to run it, deploy it prematurely.
So when will we think it will be ready? Fall? Winter? Spring?
I do hope that we can deploy it this summer. However, I cannot say that with certainty at this point.
Okay. So you're hoping this summer. If it doesn't go this summer, then I will bring it back and ask if it's ready by winter, which is October, November, December. So it should be ready by then the following summer. Thank you for being proactive. I appreciate the answers.
Thank you. Roll call.
Galindo Elvira,
Yes.
Guardado. Yes. Hodge Washington.
Yes.
Pastor.
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Stark.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Gallego.
Yes.
Passes 8-0.
Thank you so much. We'll now go to items 2 through 5. We'll begin with public testimony. Cleo. And Cleo will be our only speaker. And just this is the 20 West Jackson contracts with community bridges and contract with Maricopa County Department of Public Health.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. You know, heat relief is a personal topic to me because I have lived experience, and that lived experience, I kind of remember how dangerous our summer is and how casual heat can sneak up to you. And kind of one of the things I want to stress is that as one of the nonprofits that operate with that, we're already engaged in what we're doing now. And we work interdependently with city staff on getting information out to people. Our first step is prevention. We want to get people educated as to what we need to do. Second is the resource. Whatever resource we need to apply, I actually was able to do 2 AC units. And I done it through neighborhood services. Started with our rep, we directly intake the person, and we got it out through OHS that we made some interdependent calls, and that's the way we do this system. We can't do it alone with the City of Phoenix. We can't do it without the City of Phoenix. We're trying to change the way we do outreach in the community, and our summer heat causes us to do things that we never have done before. But the goal is not only to save lives, but to preserve the quality of life in our community. And we're going to do whatever it takes. I've got high expectations of what we're going to do. And some of the people that I'm looking at, everybody talks about a city that what they do after hours. I talk to people all day and all night long. So get ready for the phone calls. For me, it's a concept in our community, a Sunny Slope. If you give us a task, we're going to figure out a way to solve it. Thanks for being a part of it.
Thank you. That concludes public comment. Councilman Glendale Avera, do we have a motion on items 2 through 5?
I do indeed, Mayor. I move to.
I'm sorry. Will the city clerk please call the roll and read the 24-hour paragraph? Sorry, Councilman.
that's
I
fine.
was ahead of.
Councilman Galindo Elvira for roll
Here.
call. Councilwoman Guardado.
Yes.
Councilwoman, this is for roll call. Thank you. Councilwoman Hodge Washington.
Yes. Here, sorry.
Councilwoman Pastor.
Present.
Councilman Robinson.
Here.
Councilwoman Stark.
Here.
Councilman Waring.
Present.
Vice Mayor O'Brien.
Present.
Mayor Gallego.
Present.
Thank you. And the titles of the following ordinance numbers on the agenda were available to the public at least 24 hours prior to this council meeting and therefore may be read by title or agenda item only. Ordinances numbered S 51722 through 51725. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman.
Instant replay. Mayor, I move to approve items 2 through 5.
Second.
Motion and a second. Everyone recognized to explain their vote if they wish. Roll call.
Galindo Elvira.
Yes.
Guardado.
Yes.
Hodge Washington.
Yes, I want to explain my vote first. I am going to vote in favor of this because today's high is expected to be 97 degrees, so it is definitely a need. However, I'm disappointed that the level of community engagement has not included all of the businesses that we have talked about, and we know that this is not a small matter in their neighborhoods, and I'm also disappointed that we did not go out to seek more competitive bids for the vendor. But I am still going to vote in favor of this, but I wanted my dissatisfaction to be noted on the record. Thank you.
Pastor.
I'm going to explain my vote. Item 5, it states that community bridges will pay the cost of police services at a 24/7 respite center, not to exceed $700,000. However, at the top, it says this is for District 7 and citywide. So I'm a little confused as to, I'm not confused, actually. It says 24/7 respite, which is District 7. The piece that I'm not understanding is when it says citywide. So, but I'm a yes. That's just where I'm at.
Robinson?
Yes.
Stark?
Yes.
O'Brien?
Yes.
Gallego?
Yes.
Passes 8-0.
That concludes today's agendized business. We are adjourned.
Dump the truck pretty quickly and safely, call 911 and then call your supervisor. I was a little bit